Hello and welcome into Celtics 2, episode number 3. Our first one, Dennis, after a Celtics victory.
Can't believe it.
Kind of crazy to say. I mean, it's not like they've been losing games in consecutively every single game. It's been, 50-50, and we've just had the bad luck so far until it stopped in this most recent game. The Celtics with a big win over the Knicks in a game that felt honestly like 90s style basketball. Low scoring, bruising.
Exactly.
Real physical game, which the Knicks bring every time. That's Tibbs' nature.
Yep, it is Tibbs' nature. It was kind of a nice refresher after all the high-scoring games lately to have like a little bit of a blast from the past there. So we'll take it. Took the win. So.
And in that blast from the past, they played a close game, and that brings us right into Big Three, number one, which is the Celtics won a close game, which is not easy for this team to do. If you look back over the course of the last 8 games, this team's lost, right? They've lost 7 of those last one by 10 or less points. So It's not like they're getting blown out in a lot of games. That hasn't been the theme of over the course of this season. It's either been oftentimes having big leads, losing them to start the year, and then more recently having to claw back into games. But it's not like this team has been out again and again. It's been close games where they just haven't been able to pull the trigger down the stretch. And this game kind of embodied that in the end with Marcus Smart hitting a big shot at the end of the game, which he's been one of the main guys who's been that struggle bus guy towards the end of the game, especially Memphis, which is the episode we did the first show. He made some, to put it kindly, questionable choices down the stretch of that game. I think that's a gentle way of putting it.
Yeah.
You could just call them terrible passes, but
boneheaded plays.
Or bad shots. But in general, I know it's the Knicks, but they're still a solid team that's probably going to be in the playoffs. This win's encouraging. I don't think you don't want to overreact to anything and put it as, oh my God, the Celtics are here. They're back. This is the team you expected to see at the start of the season. But you're encouraged.
Yep. No, I totally agree. It was nice and refreshing for the first time in a long time to get that after game high of being pumped with the way they've been playing recently. I mean, like you said, it was good for Marcus. He had that wide open shot at the end of the game. Finally made it. I think he was 2 for 7 before that shot. And it was good to see that go in because he'd been struggling recently, especially with his decision making, like you said, at the end of the games. But I honestly, to be honest, I wasn't thinking they would pull it out, but they did it. So I'll take it. And we'll have to see what they do from here because that was definitely a nice look for them there at the end of the game.
And credit to Tatum to getting him that shot there, which is something that this team has struggled with down the stretch. And speaking about not being at their best in clutch moments, part of that comes as painting a larger picture of the team's struggles in general, which comes to Big Three number 2, which is ball movement. It comes from that. It all stems sort of together. 24th in the league in assists. It's only 30 teams. That's towards the bottom half. It comes from a lot of that ISO ball, and down the stretch, that doesn't always work. You need a guy who can do that from time to time. That's why the Bucks haven't won a title, because Giannis isn't elite one-on-one, and you need a guy to get you a bucket down the stretch. But you also need to be able to move the ball as well.
Exactly. ISO ball has definitely been a problem all season. And I know we like Tatum getting the end of game shots, and it's usually an ISO play that they run for him. Most of the times with this clutch factor, it's worked pretty well. But throughout the game, it's really nice to see some ball movement. I think over the past week, it's gotten a little better. But 24th in the league in assists, not solid. The past 3 years, we've actually been top 10 in ISO ball after being bottom 5 for the 2 years before that. So we definitely want ball movement back on the menu, and that's going to be a recipe for success for the rest of the year if they're able to pull it out. We'll have to see what happens.
Because, I mean, let's face it, the NBA is a league of isolation scenarios in the late game, but the key to those isolation scenarios is you want somebody to be a creator, not just begging for their own shot. Exactly. And Tatum, to his credit, is a very solid is underselling him. He's a very good isolation ball player.
Yep.
But you also need him, like he did in the game today, in a clutch situation to take sense of everything that's going on the floor and not just look for that own shot, look for the best shot for the team, which granted hasn't always been a Marcus Smart open three.
Always been, that's true.
But, I mean, if the team's going to improve, that shot is going to be one that you need him to make.
Yep. With the amount of space he had there, that was a no-brainer. I wasn't in the
Oh, he
past
could have
when Marcus
paused. He could
takes
have
those
had a
end
cup
of the
of
game.
tea.
He could have.
He could have
Yeah.
started
He
another
could have
Boston
sat
Tea
down, had
Party
a
if he
whole
wanted to.
5-course meal. Yeah, he could have. He could have just went out to the harbor and gotten it done. But yeah, it was nice to see Tatum pulling that pass out of his book, especially with at the beginning of the game today against the Knicks. He was getting a little bit of trouble. I think he ended up with 7 turnovers today, maybe 8 at the end. But he struggled a bit when he was playing his ISO ball. The Knicks defense, got to hand it to them. They were really solid today. Like we said, it was like a 90s style game.
I mean, if Tom Thibodeau is your coach,
he is. He's the perfect coach for that.
That's what you're going to expect.
Exactly. But I was glad to see Tatum pass up the final shot for once, and it was the right move in this sense.
Because, I mean, to the credit, a couple different times in this game, and even, I don't know if you saw that viral clip of Kyrie Irving being guarded by Julius Randle where he makes that crazy circus shot.
Yep,
The takeaway I had from that play, which was an amazing shot, an amazing play from Kyrie, is how well Julius Randle moves his feet defensively for a guy that big.
Does.
A couple different times he was matched up against Tatum tonight, and I was, again, amazed it wasn't just a fluke one-time thing in that play at Kyrie of just how well Julius Randle can move his feet on defense. It was really incredible. But in the end, Tatum and the Celtics got the best of them, and Tibbs' defense is infuriating.
Outstanding. Yeah, really. It has
I guess any coach who loved Joakim Noah that much, what type of player that they're going to coach, and he continues to do so. And as the Celtics team continues to take shape now, this is the core that you have. And Tristan Thompson came back tonight. This is the team you're riding with going forward. And that's big three, number 3. It's time essentially to learn, because over the next week or so, you really want to start seeing some progress and some fluidity to the offense and to the rotations, because there's only 6 weeks left in the regular season. And the question for the Celtics isn't as much of let's make the playoffs. It's you want to push much further up into the standings than the team currently resides.
Exactly. And yeah, I liked a lot what we saw from especially Tristan Thompson today, plus 24 on the court today. He played really well down the post, got a lot of offensive boards. And Romeo's been solid since he came back as well. I think he has all the tools it's going to take a few years, but to be an elite defender in the league. He has really good lateral quickness and decision making, which is good to see. And he had a nice step back 3 today too. And I think he made 3 threes in total, which is something you didn't see before. He had a hitch in his shot. So it's going to be good to see these guys getting going for the rest of the year. It might take a few weeks to shake all the rust off, but it'll be nice. And hopefully Evan Fournier will come back soon. We don't know exactly if he has COVID or if he's just in protocol for now. But we saw him get hot his last 2 games that he was playing. He was getting the groove, getting some good chemistry with the guys. He had 6 assists his last game. He looked really good out there. So that'll only put us farther up the standings if he's able to get back and these guys play so well.
And the more shooting I think that you have as a team, I just think naturally increases the propensity for ball movement, because when you have a shot and you're slightly contested and you're thinking, oh, should I pass it? Am I going to pass it to the guy who's wide open for 31% 3-point shooter? Because let's be frank, if you're a 40% 3-point shooter and you're taking a decently contested shot, right? If you're playing basketball, you're not going to make that extra pass to the wide open guy who's a way worse 3-point shooter than you, because your slightly contested percentage is probably equal to that. So why make that pass? Now, if you're making that pass and you're passing it to someone who's a 40% 3-point shooter and is wide open, you're more likely to make that pass, or more likely at least to look for that person.
Exactly. It opens up the spacing on the floor a lot, and it opens it up, like we mentioned before, the ball movement gets going. We saw a lot more ball movement with Evan out there, and especially when he's knocking down 10. I think he was at 10 3-pointers made in a row, which was second most in franchise history to start off. So can't complain with that during his past couple of games he played.
And it might free up some space for Rob down low in the middle, who he almost had a full-on Time Lord moment in the game against the Knicks, but got absolutely met at the rim by Julius Randle. Actually, apparently a lot of Julius Randle thoughts on my mind about how his defensive abilities after this game, but he deserves it.
He's fair. Yeah, it's totally fair.
Another Rob moment from earlier in the week came to mind for my phone tripping this week, because as I was watching, or as I was following along on Instagram on the Celtics account earlier this week, they tweeted, just a good solid play from Rob. And literally the caption was just, "Nice one, Rob." That was it.
Just left speechless.
That was it.
I didn't know what to say.
And so one fan out there put it to a tweet and tweeted that photo of the screenshot of the Instagram post and just put it, the Celtics Twitter just giving up.
Yep.
They're done.
They don't know what to expect with Rob anymore because he just exceeds expectations every day. And I mean, the guy does whatever he wants pretty much all the time out on the court.
Maybe that's just what happens when you're the social media guy and your team is in the middle of a back-to-back against Houston and Charlotte, rough. Especially Charlotte without, since the LaMelo Ball injury and their subsequent other injuries that they've had. Yep. So two teams very decimated that you're just going to beat. At that point, you just mail it in, I guess.
Exactly. And we needed those wins too. Yep. No, it's good to see. It's good to see Rob getting some other looks on social media as well. I think we mentioned this in past episodes, but Time Lords sweeping the nation. All right, he's a household name now, which is good to know. But I'm hoping he doesn't get too high up there, in which we could extend him at a reasonable price. I'm getting a little worried his price might get a little too far out there with Tatum and Brown's contracts right now. But I'm hoping for the best with him. I want to retain him for a few years down the road.
Only time will tell on that. Just like only time will tell how this team continues to gel, which leads into my final thought about closing time, which is the end of game situations. We mentioned off the top of the show, of the last 8 losses for the Celtics, 7 of them have all been relatively close games, 10 or less points. When you're in those battles going forward, how will this team perform? Will they continue to move the ball well like they did tonight and get the right open shot? And I guess more to the point than just getting the open shot is hitting it. Because the Celtics, to put it bluntly, have lacked both. They've lacked the open shot down the stretch, and then they've lacked the ability to make a shot down the stretch of games. Both of those things are just going to be paramount to see where this team falls in the seeding, because in a lot of cases in an NBA game, one team has a chance at some point in the fourth quarter, usually no matter the margin in the game. Now, if every now and again you get one that's into the 20 or 30-point lead heading into the fourth quarter, that one might not get too close in the fourth. But overall, in general, sometimes it feels like the game really starts with like 8 minutes left in the fourth.
It does.
And that's when the Celtics have not been at their best this season.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, they've been struggling all year with the closeouts. Fourth quarter is just giving them a bunch of issues. And I think I could bring this into my closing thought as well, which kind of interrelates to that. But I think it's just the effort, the overall effort, heart you see out on the court. I feel like, as much I love Tatum, we all love Tatum, and he's been the reason for the Celtics' success this year. I feel like recently he's looked a little lackadaisical out there, hasn't shown as much heart, hasn't been moving as much on defense. You've seen him cause a lot of blown up plays recently on defense, which is not good to see. And him and Brown haven't been like pumping up the team as much recently, and even Marcus has gone down a little bit in that sense as well. But we just got to hope that comes back. We saw a little glimpse of that at the end of the game tonight. I think it was really good for them to get that win because the past couple of games have brought their mojo down a bit. But we saw Marcus getting pumped after his 3 at the end, like getting in everyone's grill, like being super happy about it. And then Jalen at the end of the game as well, getting pumped up. So that was good to see. And we just need that overall heart out there because we're going to be a playing team if they continue to show as much effort as they have been recently. We need everyone to gel well, need everyone to be super excited going into every game, looking to bring out the best in each other. And we just got to hope to see that, especially with all the key pieces coming back, like we said earlier.
And just in general, I think everyone benefits seemingly when Marcus Smart is playing better.
True.
Because he is the heart and soul of the team. And when he hits a big shot in a game, I'm interested to see how the team responds going forward into next week. I'm curious, this time next week, we're talking about 2 more victories where the team really gelled well together, because this could be the type of game that's like a stepping stone. Because again, as we mentioned, you don't want to, you're definitely not going to have people out there, I would like to think, crazily overreacting to a win over the Knicks as the savior of the season.
Yep.
But it's the type of game beating a very solid team who plays you very tough They play everyone in the league. Very tough. You're going to leave with some bruises from one of those games for sure.
Yep.
And coming away where you execute down the stretch and your guy who is the identity of your team finally makes a big play and breaks through a little bit. That could be the type of thing that motivates you in the games coming forward.
We needed it. We needed it big time, and we got to hope that it continues in the future. Especially, I think we have a tough stretch coming up, especially with Evan not being back. Hopefully, he'll come back sooner rather than later, but we're going to need some wins coming up. We don't want to play in that playing game.
Definitely would like to avoid the playing game at all possible. There'll be 2 more games coming up before we see you next week with the Celtics facing off against Minnesota and Denver. And, 3 games. And Portland as well.
Yep.
See you next
That'll
week.
Be a tough one.
We'll see what happens. We'll see you next week. Hopefully they'll keep riding it. We'll find out. Peace.
Hoping for the best.